Hello, welcome back to Press Review, where we bring you top stories from international papers and analysis on stories in the Middle East. Let's begin now with the UK front pages. The Guardian leads its front page reporting that Britain's green ambitions have been dealt a blow today after a Big Six energy company has pulled the plug on one of the largest offshore wind farms. It also reports that the elderly couple accused of holding 3 women as domestic slaves has been leading lights in a cult-like far-left political cult that worshipped the Chinese revolutionary Mao Zedong. The Guardian also features Anthony van Dyck's 1641 self-portrait as National Portrait Gallery launches its campaign to raise £12.5 million sterling to buy the masterpiece and keep it in Britain. The Telegraph leads its front page reporting on European Commission saying that Bulgarians and Romanians moving to Britain will help the economy, warning David Cameron of his plans to restrict European migrants' access to benefits. It also reports on a Malaysian family who has come forward to claim that a woman allegedly held as a slave for 30 years is a relation who had disappeared virtually without trace after joining a mouse sect, featuring an old picture of the girl claimed to be Aisha. The Independent leads its front page reporting on George Osborne, who agreed to impose a cap on payday lenders charged under pressure from peers led by Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby, who threatened to stall the government's banking reforms. It also reports on Royal Bank of Scotland's Global Restructuring Group, which has demanded that companies falling within its remit stop paying tax, and features Andy Warhol's series of Mao prints as news emerges of the couple who held 3 women as slaves ran a Mao Zedong sect. The Times' front page, which carries a warning to David Cameron from backbench modernisers that he might split the party if he abandons green policies to appease those on the right, leads its opinion editor Tim Montgomery to list the Prime Minister's big ideas that failed to gain momentum. And now let's take a look at the top stories in the Middle East. As reports emerge of Israel's knowledge of the secret talks held between US and Iran over Iran's nuclear program, let's take a look at how analysts are looking at the agreement from the position of 2 of its opponents. Writing for the UK's Telegraph, Richard Spencer analyzes the nuclear deal closely, looking at Saudi Arabia in his article, US can't afford to ignore the Middle East for long. Spencer says that Saudi Arabia dislikes the deal the West has cut with Iran for 2 reasons. The first is obvious: it is an encouragement to its greatest regional rival, a country it regards as a menace. The fact that the West largely agrees Iran is a menace makes it all the harder to bear. The writer adds that the second reason is more subtle. Its bluff has been called, and now it must live up to the responsibilities it has invoked for itself. It wonders whether it has the capability to do so, so should we. Spencer believes that Western diplomats can make their own judgments about Iran, and this deal suggests they have done. Predicting Saudi actions is much harder, even though it's a Western ally. Nawaf Obaid, a senior Saudi advisor, said the country would start pursuing its foreign policy goals independently. It has already begun to do so. In regards to Saudi's stance on Iran, Spencer says that a Saudi-backed alliance came into force for all the Islamist rebel groups apart from those aligned to Al-Qaeda. Riyadh made clear it favors a military solution and will strive to ensure that goal, whatever the outcome of the peace conference announced for January. Spencer believes that the US will not interfere if Saudi decides on a military solution, as few American presidents feel comfortable sending troops into the melee of the Middle East sectarian politics. When they have done so, it has often ended badly. If local regional powers take up the gauntlet, so much the better. He adds that history and common sense suggest that the West, even at its most isolationist, cannot ignore the Middle East for long. And he concludes that Saudi Arabia, for all its many flaws, is right about one thing: it does not want to see Western armies back on the sands of the Middle East, nor does anyone else, but diplomatic triumphs one decade can lead straight to that very outcome in the next. Roger Cohen, writing in the New York Times, looks at the Iran nuclear agreement from Israel's perspective in his article, Israel's Iran Dilemma. Cohen says the era of traumatized alienation is over. The United States and Iran have embarked on a new phase in their relationship. It is marked by bilateral negotiations, handshakes, smiles, side-by-side flags, and significant compromise. The writer says the 6 months interim deal fast-forwards American-Iranian relations and may thereby redraw the strategic map of the Middle East. According to Cohen, this explains Israel's over-the-top niyat, its insistence that a deal heading off escalation makes the region more dangerous. Cohen believes that just as the United States has had to adapt to a world where its power is unmatched but no longer determinant, Israel will have to do the same. Cohen adds, "Let us be clear, this is the best deal that could be had. Nothing, not even sustained Israeli bombardment, can reverse the nuclear know-how Iran possesses. The objective must be to ring-fence the acquired capability so its use can only be peaceful." Cohen says diplomacy involves compromise. Risk is inherent to it. Iran is to be tested. Nobody can know the outcome. Things may unravel, but at least there is hope. Perhaps this is what is most threatening to Netanyahu. He has never been willing to test the Palestinians in a serious way, test their good faith, test ending the humiliations of the occupation, test from strength the power of justice and peace. He has preferred domination, preferred the Palestinians down and under pressure. Cohen concludes that Obama and Kerry have invited Netanyahu to think again, and not just about Iran. Nothing to judge by the hyperventilating Israeli rhetoric could be more disconcerting. Nothing is more needed. Cheap allusions to 1938 are a poor template for Israel in the 21st century. Avi Ben-Hur writes Israel, Iran and the bomb in the Huffington Post as he takes a look how Israel should handle the deal. Hur says for some time now Israel has been concerned that Iran's nuclear program's primary goal is to achieve the capability and capacity of creating atomic weapons. Israel perceives a nuclear Iran as an existential threat. In this context, Prime Minister Netanyahu has made great efforts to get the international community to take significant measures to prevent Iran from realizing its goals. According to Hur, the United States has led the international pressure on Iran partially as a response to Israeli pressure, but also because a nuclear Iran is deemed as a regional threat and one that can spell trouble not only for the Middle East, but also for Europe and perhaps in the future the US. Hur asks, what then should be the Israeli response to the emerging deal with Iran? He says, in the opinion of this writer, Israel must sit back and let the US take the lead. If at the end of the day the Iranians achieve nuclear military capabilities, Israel will not find itself alone. There is an international interest in preventing nuclear proliferation in the Middle East that goes beyond Israel. He says, looking past the potential balance of terror between Israel and Iran based on mutually assured destruction, the threat of nuclear proliferation, and the chance to radical groups could get their hands on weapons of mass destruction are issues that the US and Europe will be forced to confront. The writer concludes that Israel, on the other hand, should not be tempted to go it alone with Iran. The consequences could be disastrous. As Ban Ki-moon announces 22nd of January as the date set for Geneva II Syria peace talks, let's take a look at various developments in the country. Al-Hayat newspaper features an article headlined, Syrian Wa'ad Party denies being Muslim Brotherhood arm, written by Zaidan Zenklo. Here, Zenklo claims that Syrian oppositionists are holding extensive meetings in Istanbul to prepare for the announcement of a new Syrian party named the National Party of Justice and Constitution, or WAD according to its Arabic acronym. Zenklo states that the party is preparing for its launch by implementing its political program, which now focuses on supporting the Syrian revolution politically through the media and by providing humanitarian support. Zenklo points out that the meetings of the party's constituent body decided that party members will be 1/3 Muslim Brotherhood, 1/3 Islamists, and 1/3 liberal national figures. Zenklo refers to WAD spokesman Jihad al-Attasi, who told Al-Hayat that the new party is an independent national party with a centrist Islamic reference that works to entrench the principles of freedom and justice by democratic means. Al-Attasi said that WAD is independent from the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamic movements and is definitely not affiliated with nor an arm of the Muslim Brotherhood. Its members come from all of the Syrian society and include Muslims, Christians, Arabs, Kurds, and so on. Zenklo indicates that it has been rumored Waad was no more than the Muslim Brotherhood's political arm, a claim supported by Ali Bayanouni, the Brotherhood's former controller. He had said that Waad was about to be launched and that the new party will strive for equality, justice, dignity and freedom for the people of Syria and will seek to establish democratic mechanisms according to the Islamic model. According to Atassi, has no organizational links with the Turkish Justice and Development Party, AKP, is still in its front stages, and it looks forward to friendly relations and cooperations with all Arab parties, Syrian, Arab and international. Atassi also said the new party sees the coalition as the political representative of the Syrian revolution and as a political body that includes many good political and national blocs. Regarding Waad's position on the Geneva II conference, Atassi said going to the Geneva II conference is an opportunity to change the general political position to the interest of the Syrian revolution by clearly defining objectives, represented by reaching a transitional phase, having a government with full powers. And to conclude, Zenklo reminds us that the political parties have been absent from the Syrian political scene since the Ba'ath Party came to power in the coup of March 8, 1963, when one-party rule was established. But after the Syrian revolution started, a party's law was issued in August 2011 and amended in February 2012. Pursuant to the law, a number of new parties were licensed, but the oppositionists accused the newly licensed parties of being directly or indirectly subservient to the Syrian security services, which have a grip on all aspects of life. The Syrian Times features an article headlined, "Syrian Army's Victory Nearing, Conspiracy in Last Chapter." According to the writer, the Syrian Arab Army is achieving advance in confronting terrorism on all areas around the country through qualitative operations that eliminated many terrorist dens and gatherings. He claims the armed terrorist groups will definitely be crushed by the Syrian army, and those mercenaries will not weaken Syrian people's determination and faith in victory. The writer sees the unity of the Syrian people as stronger than all sabotage acts. Despite all their sabotage and terrorist acts, the terrorists will not succeed in shaking the civil peace that has marked Syria for so long. The writer goes on to say that the human values and international law are threatened of danger in light of the spread of international terrorism and the Takfiri mentality if the UN will not move to confront that fatal mentality which tries to get the generations back to the ages of underdevelopment and illiteracy, as well as the laws of women's slavery. The writer argues that the achievements and services in Syria suffered a blow due to the methodical vandalism and deliberate destruction by armed terrorist groups, coupled with unfair economic embargo on the services sector by the countries backing these groups, which cast a shadow on the Syrian citizens' livelihood. The writer believes that it is very important at this stage to enhance the spirit of amity and tolerance among the Syrians to overcome the crisis. Syria will always embrace its entire people, including the mistaken, when they decide to return to the right path, he says. And to conclude, the writer says Syria is targeted for its firm pan-Arab principles and for supporting the resistance to defend the rights and interests of the Arab nation. The world will witness soon the victory of Syria over terrorism. Reporting for Relief Web News website, Timothy Witcher writes an article headlined, "Syria peace talks face major obstacles, analysis." According to Witcher, the January 22nd start of the landmark Syria peace talks in Geneva will be difficult to keep as the war worsens and fallout spreads across the Middle East. Witcher quotes UN leader Ban Ki-moon, who said, "At long last and for the first time, the Syrian government and opposition will meet at the negotiating table instead of the battlefield." Witcher refers to US Secretary of State John Kerry, who said the conference would be the best opportunity to halt the bloodshed, but according to Witcher, few observers see any chance of dousing the wildfires turning Syria into an inferno of conflict. The conference guest list is not agreed. The international powers are divided and cannot control the carnage and bitterness between President Bashar al-Assad and the fractured Syrian opposition runs deep. Witcher cites Salman Sheikh, director of the Brookings Doha Center think tank, who said that the fact that the United Nations has announced the date is already a positive sign, but the chances of the Geneva meeting going ahead is 50-50, as it is hostage to the situation on the ground. According to Sheikh, the opposition has to go. It is weak and it needs the legitimacy that has been conferred on it by the international community, and they don't want to be the ones who are blamed for the failure of the talks by not showing up. Sheikh added the rebels are running a huge risk. However, if there are no real achievements and the situation on the ground is the same, if not worse, then of course this group of individuals from the opposition will be facing severe criticism. Witcher continues to say the UN, United States and Russia want the conference to happen now. A date has been set, but there is still a high chance of the talks derailing once they begin, or they could result in a very limp compromise if the negotiators are not serious. Is it going to be easy to get the January 22nd without any hiccups? Probably not, said the UN spokesman Martin Nesirki, acknowledging the obstacles. The conference will be the start of a process, he added, downplaying expectations for immediate results. Witcher concludes, quoting Ban Ki-moon, who said both sides in the conflict can and must begin now to take steps to help the Geneva Conference succeed, including toward the cessation of violence, humanitarian access, release of detainees and return of Syrian refugees and internally displaced people to their homes. And now let's take a look at the top headlines from international papers. Moscow Times leads with the headline EU slams Russia over Ukraine feud as protests continue in the city of Kiev. The Washington Post leads with the headline security pact with Afghans cast into doubt as US says it may have no choice but total pullout. China's Global Times leads with the headline TIP jihadi video proves group's terrorist nature. And finally, the UAE's Gulf News leads with the headline Dubai budget spending to hit 37.88 billion UAE dirhams. Thank you for watching us today. That was all. I'll see you tomorrow for another press review.